Thursdays with Kavzar, the Blind, and me, Ye Sente. Kavzar is our host behind the scenes, leading us through the way.
Yes, sir. This evening we got another lineup of groups of interest. This is the part 2 of the previous week, and we got some good ones for you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be starting out tonight with the Serpent's Hand group of interest, and this is actually a big one that I forgot to post last week, so we're going to have some fun with it tonight.
Yay!
The Serpent's Hand. From human rights activists to civil rights activists, to animal rights activists, our world is filled with people fighting and advocating for the rights of all sorts of things. It stands to reason, then, that in a world such as the SCP universe, filled with anomalies, there are going to be individuals fighting for the rights of the anomalous. These people are known as the Serpent's Hand. Ultimately, the Serpent's Hand would like to see all of the anomalies that they deem to be non-dangerous out free, with the public fully aware of their existence. And so this puts them at odds against groups like the Foundation and the GOC. Like many things in the SCP universe, the operations of the Serpent's Hand are fairly mysterious, but let's look at some of their beliefs and the work they've done. One of the few things we can say for certain about the Serpent's Hand, aside from their goal, is that they possess access to an extra-dimensional space known as the Wanderer's Library. The Wanderer's Library is basically a massive repository of books, including practically every book that was ever written, books that haven't been written yet, and books that will never be written, if you can wrap your head around that. The Serpent's Hand do not own or run the library, they merely utilize it, and in fact it's said that they only rediscovered the library in 1967, after being removed from it for some time. The library is staffed by individuals that apparently broke the rules of the library, such as not damaging books, not stealing books, and not harming anyone within the library. The archivists are connected to the desks in the main hall, and they instinctively know how to find every book within the library. They also handle the distribution of library cards, checking books out, and keeping track of who has borrowed which book. They possess no eyes and no legs, as they are directly connected to their chairs. Pages are the entities responsible for reshelving books in the library, possessing 6 to 10 arms, bowed legs, and squat bodies, making them excellent climbers. They spend most of their time climbing across the vast arrays of shelves located within the library. The docents act as library guides, taking visitors to find books, as well as acting as library security against both hostile intruders and rule violators. They have no mouths, and their left hand is replaced with a chain connected to an ever-burning lantern. The library is apparently entered through the use of multi-dimensional portals called ways, although their nature and number is pretty much unknown. Many entities utilize the library for various purposes, and the Serpent's Hand use it as a base of operations and general meeting place. Unlike many other groups within the SCP universe, the Serpent's Hand don't have a strict hierarchy or organization process. Function as more of a loose political movement than a proper organization, and so the group seems to be divided into a number of different smaller factions with differing ideologies and methods. All it takes to be a part of the Serpent's Hand is to simply consider yourself one of the Serpent's Hand. There's likely no central leader to the entire group, merely leaders of different cells and factions. An individual known as M is one of them, as well as another that goes by the initials LS. LS's identity is up for debate, but a leading theory is that she is actually the Black Queen, a title for the daughter of Dr. Gears, a noted Foundation researcher. The Black Queen is known to have access to the Wanderer's Library and to hold a grudge against her father and the SCP Foundation. Additionally, it's believed that there are thousands of Black Queens across thousands of universes, and a number of them use the library as a meeting place, referring to each other as Little Sisters, or LS. An SCP connected to LS is SCP-268, a newsboy cap that causes a wearer to become unnoticeable by anyone around them. The wearer is generally completely ignored, and observers will be unable to recall any specific details about the wearer. If the wearer speaks or interacts physically with an observer, they will be noticed, but soon forgotten again. The effects seem to build upon a wearer, and if they wear it long enough, the effects strengthen and even linger after removing the hat. 268 was used in field operations by some Foundation agents, but after a while, everyone at the Foundation forgot the agent existed. That being said, it's certainly a useful anomaly for someone trying to go into places they don't belong. Unfortunately, the Foundation no longer possesses the SCP, as one day they discovered it missing, a note in its place reading, "Thanks, I needed my hat back. LS." There was also a label on the hat reading, "The garden is the serpent's place," connecting it to the serpent's hand. The serpent's hand don't exactly get along with most of the other paranormal groups acting in the SCP universe. They clash the most with the Global Occult Coalition, which they refer to as the Book Burners, due to the GOC's general policy of destroying the anomalous. The GOC have apparently launched at least one raid on the Wanderer's library, destroying part of it, and the GOC considers every Serpent's Hand member to be a high-level threat. The Serpent's Hand get along a little better with the SCP Foundation, which they refer to as the Jailers, although that's not saying much. The Serpent's Hand are fundamentally against the Foundation's policy of secrecy, and definitely object to their treatment and containment of harmless anomalies, but they do acknowledge that not every anomaly should be free. They get along fairly well with Marshall, Carter, and Dark, the Merchants, due to their willingness to obtain anomalies from both the Foundation and the GOC for the right price. That being said, they are still wary of them, as MC&D rarely make fair bargains. The Serpent's Hand are more fascinated by the Church of the Broken God than anything else, but they are against the Chaos Insurgency, who they call the Madmen, due to the damage they've done to the library and their general hostility. The Serpent's Hand generally believes that humanity is better off with full knowledge of the anomalous, so that they can better protect themselves from danger. It's not their stance that every anomaly should be left free and out in the open, so their beliefs are a bit more nuanced than, say, the GOC. In fact, there are cases where the Serpent's Hand have actually destroyed dangerous anomalies. SCP-407 was a song in an unidentified language sung by what seemed to be humans. Listeners of the song described it as soothing and beautiful, but while playing, 407 caused rapid cell generation in any life forms nearby. During the first minute, this only causes the subject to become much healthier, curing scarring, wounds, chronic diseases, brain and spinal cord injuries, and more. During the second and third minutes, subjects begin experiencing unnecessary unrestrained cell growth, as tumors and fat deposits begin covering their body. During the fourth minute, increased bacterial and fungal growth occurs, creating respiratory and digestive problems. Past 5 minutes, trace elements of plants or fungus, as well as any animal life present, begin to grow and replicate uncontrollably, often shaping into new organisms. Essentially, listening to the song causes life forms to erupt into plants and fungi, as well as new insect and animal life forms. Eventually, everything breaks down into a type of mold. The individual known as LS broke into Site-19 one day while wearing SCP-268, simply by walking in. LS seemingly broke in to utilize SCP-914 for an unknown purpose, but also managed to delete SCP-407 completely from the Foundation system. LS also left a note near SCP-914, and so I'll read it in its entirety to give some insight to the Serpent's Hand. Dear Sirs of the Foundation, behind guns and protocol you hide, desperately chaining the ineffable, yourselves stuck within your own self-wrought pitiful cages of fear and ignorance. You think yourselves the shepherd guarding the flocks of the unwise over the night, but you are so shaken by doubt and fear that in your bewildered arrogance you would vainly seek to chain the sun itself unto the heavens to hold back the daily night. The delivering angels themselves you contain with 3 digits and 4 walls. Do you not see the blindness with which you walk and swing your blade? On the final day would you have us contain Black Surtur himself with measures and science, and condemn ourselves to rotten stagnancy as you hold back his pure cleansing fires? I do not ask you not to act, but act with enlightenment and heart. Neither should one be seduced by the dark nor blinded by the light, but walk firmly in the twilight and gaze unto all realms. Walk the world of fire with bare feet, and you will find yourself without the scars you never knew you had. I leave you with one final truth. The garden is the serpent's place. The divinities of fear and order who come to walk in the cool evening air are only visitors. Do not fail to see the evil hiding in the light, nor the aromatic beauty of the palest flower of darkness. Signed sincerely, LS. P.S. You'll thank me for deleting what you call 407. Due to the fragmented nature of the Serpent's Hand, it can be difficult to definitively state the group's purpose and methods. Some factions of the Serpent's Hand are willing to work with the Foundation sometimes, while other groups are radical enough to cause end-of-the-world scenarios. Some of them are willing to destroy dangerous anomalies, while many others in the group are anomalies themselves. In general, though, the spread of knowledge of the paranormal is either their most important goal, or at least secrecy is of no concern of theirs, fully willing to expose the paranormal to the public. Some care more about the unfortunate treatment of harmless, sapient anomalies and risk their lives in attempts to free them. Perhaps the world at large would indeed be better off knowing about the anomalous. Or perhaps the world would plunge into chaos. Either way, the members of the Serpent's Hand are determined to spread the word.
Legit. Yay. Let me... I had the volume up hella high on here. That's probably why.
Yeah, that's why I turned it down a little bit in the video early on. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah. Let me lower it. It'll be better. There we go. That's much better.
But yeah, that is the Serpent's Hand, and he kind of explained it a little bit at the end. The Serpent's Hand isn't a wholly unified group. It's basically a conglomerate of smaller cells, revolutionary cells, essentially. One of which, you might have guessed, is the antagonistic group that I introduced in my second chapter of my short story, and that's called the Serpent's Red Hand, and that'll be expounded upon more and explained and explored in my third chapter, so definitely stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I'm excited. How's that going anyways?
I'm about 1/3 of the way through writing chapter 3. I'm going to continue editing chapter 2, however, because I still have that tense issue that needs to be dealt with, but for now, let's see, the next video is GRU Division P. And I believe I covered... Oh, I didn't. There's 2 groups in the SCP universe that are governmental related. The SCP Foundation itself is actually not a governmental agency. It's its own, secretive corporation. The U.S. has a group that is a subdivision of the FBI called the Unusual Incidents Unit, or UIU for short. I didn't actually cover that in the previous groups of interest streaming last week, so we'll probably play that at some point in the future. But the other governmental anomalous group that's out there is called GRU Division P, and this one is based out of Russia.
Russia. Let's do it.
GRU Division P. The SCP Foundation is generally considered a global organization, with agents and facilities across the world, but by and large they are headquartered in the United States. They don't usually have any special affiliations or bonds with the US government, but most of their larger sites are in America. There are plenty of other anomalous organizations around the world, though, that do share special connections to different countries and governments. The FBI has an unusual incidents unit, the GOC works for the United Nations, and GRU Division P is an official branch of the Russian Armed Forces. Division P will give us a couple of unique perspectives to look into. One, of course, them being Russian, and the other of an anomalous organization that works directly for a country's government. Division P has been involved in a large number of anomalies since their inception, and so we'll only be looking at the more notable ones. The GRU is an actual foreign military intelligence agency that serves the Russian Armed Forces, responsible for gathering intelligence on foreign countries and ensuring Russia's security, partly by utilizing an elite group of special forces known as the Spetsnaz GRU. Division P of the GRU, or Division Psychotronics, was supposedly formed after Stalin commanded a small group of men to investigate the death of Bolshevik leader Sergei Kirov. The history books show that Kirov was simply assassinated at gunpoint, but Stalin suspected there was more to it, and sure enough, it was later proved that Kirov was murdered using a construct-invasive reality discrepancy. At a meeting with the investigators and other officials, Stalin announced that Kirov's murderer had used a small trinket to walk up and kill him without a single guard stopping him. The investigation fueled Stalin's paranoia, and the group, then known as the Abnormal Occurrences Commission, continued looking into various anomalies, mostly for their potential benefit to the Soviet Union. As they learned of the state of anomalies present in the world, and how much further along other countries were in paranatural research, particularly Germany, the group was expanded into an official division of the GRU. The Foundation doesn't know much about Division P's activities during their height, other than they had been working on plenty of projects utilizing anomalies to ensure the Soviet security as a superpower. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, however, Division P was supposedly dissolved along with it, although many former members continued to collaborate in secret. We'll mostly be looking at anomalies handled by Division P during their height, between the 1940s and 1980s. Division P, during their operating years, of course kept tabs on a number of other anomalous organizations across the world. The Foundation, referred to internally as SAC, was largely a mystery to Division P, but they knew they were rapidly expanding in scope. The Horizon Initiative, referred to as Bulava, is an anomalous organization based on the three major Abrahamic religions, and became staunch enemies of the Church of the Broken God and the Fifth Church. Division P would apparently occasionally cooperate with the Foundation and the Horizon Initiative to prevent the spread of hogweed at all costs, although exactly what hogweed is left as a mystery. Division P would screen their cosmonaut applicants for any fifthist beliefs, and would cooperate with another secretive Soviet organization referred to as Engels to use anomalies to improve the USSR. Let's start then with a particularly Soviet anomaly, SCP-1011, a 2-meter tall iron statue depicting a worker whose head has been replaced with various tools. At the base of the statue is an inscription reading, "Man is the most important means of production." 1011 came to the attention of the Foundation in 1947 after an inspection by the Soviet government to look into a steelworks that was consistently exceeding their production targets. 1011's properties activate after being seen by a human subject, who goes on to perform productive labor no more than 3 hours later. The subjects are now in stage 1 of the exposure, and although intervention can halt the progress of the condition, subjects will continue to expose themselves to 1011 if left unchecked. Stage 1 subjects will begin to demonstrate a heightened sense of morale and satisfaction, working longer hours voluntarily and becoming more focused on their tasks. This stage lasts for months, and as time goes on, subjects will cease any activity other than working, sleeping, and taking care of basic needs. Eventually, subjects will progress to Stage 2, where they will begin to disregard their personal safety, choosing not to use things such as helmets, gloves, or safety glasses, claiming that they are unnecessary and binding. They will also slowly cease to utilize tools in their work, instead using their own bodies, even at the risk of minor damage. A number of months later, they will progress to Stage 3, where subjects will no longer sleep, instead staring at the statue for an average of 3 hours per day. The use of tools and machines is almost completely abandoned by this point, as subjects will work in groups to accomplish tasks, and their bodies begin to deform to better aid them. They also have developed a marked resistance to pain, casually using their bodies to perform horrifically dangerous tasks. The investigator who inspected the steelworks in 1947 found that men were handling red-hot ingots with their bare hands, which were black and shriveled. Others pounded in rivets with their heads, and he saw 2 men using another man to saw through a log, the man's back covered in sharp ridges. Each worker smiled eagerly at every visitor, and they would extol the glorious virtues of the statue. The inspector requested the immediate shutdown of the steelworks, claiming that this is not the path they should be taking to rebuild the motherland. It's at this point then that the Foundation became aware of the statue and moved in to secure it, but Division P arrived first, sealing off the area. A leaked action report from Division P showed that they found the steelworks abandoned, with dozens of ingots sitting in the main foundry. Inspection of the ingots revealed that the last 15 had a distinct texture, softer than normal, with bone-like segments interspersed. Inspection of the furnace revealed remains of blood and scraps of tissue inside. They found 1 worker alive, who ignored all questions and would only repeat, "Job's done," over and over. It seems that Stage 4 of exposure causes subjects to use their own bodies as construction material. Division P apparently left the statue where it was, as in 1991 the Foundation managed to buy the steelworks and convert it into a site. So far, they have not had any luck in finding the trigger for D-class subjects to progress from Stage 3 to Stage 4. Perhaps they just don't possess that communist spirit. Let's move on to something that tells us a bit more about Division P, while also being a really interesting SCP. SCP-3034 is a recurring radio broadcast that so far has only been picked up in a remote area of Russia, and all attempts to trace the broadcast's origins have failed. It was first brought to the Foundation's attention by a defecting agent of Division P, and he directed them to a remote facility in Russia, first believed by the Foundation to be a Russian number station. Number stations are radio stations that have been utilized by various countries dating back to World War I to transmit encrypted information to agents operating in foreign countries through the use of vocalized, repeating numbers. They found the station recently evacuated, with a still-running generator, well-maintained radio equipment, burnt records, and dozens of logbooks describing received broadcasts dating back to 1947. Carved into a desk in Russian, they found 2 phrases: "Do not let her finish," and "Tell her all is well." On their second day there, an alarm in the station went off, signaled by an incoming broadcast. Turning on the speakers, the Foundation agents heard a young woman speaking in Russian, counting down. The agents quickly decided to follow the instructions on the desk, turned on the microphone, and said, "Всё хорошо," or "all is well." The voice stopped, a tone played, and the broadcast ended. It would seem that, at random intervals, sometimes as short as 2 weeks apart, or as long as 6 months, the station will receive a broadcast, in which a synthesized musical tone will play, followed by the voice of the young girl counting down from 200 in Russian. The broadcast is stopped only by an individual transmitting "all is well," and so far the Foundation is unwilling to see what happens when the voice gets to 0. A partially burned magnetic tape reveals a conversation recorded between 2 Division P agents. The conversation concerns a young girl that one of the agents apparently attempted to take away from Division P, possibly with the intention to run away to America. The agent in charge insists that the girl is state property, and that the other agent is delusional if he thought he would get to raise the girl as his own. The captured agent says that Division P is messing with powers they can't possibly understand, but the other agent says that the Americans are potentially forcing their hand, referring to something as an atom bomb. The captured agent says that one does not make deals with atom bombs, nor does one sacrifice little girls to them. The agent says that these sacrifices will save millions, if not billions. The ends justify the means, as always. He says that they will demonstrate their power to the Americans with a small taste of what they can do with this atom bomb. The captured agent panics, saying that they cannot go through with this, as they have finally contained this entity, and they can't risk it by making deals with it. They seem to each be suffering from nightmares, voices screaming in the dark. The agent in charge concludes that if America forces their hand, they'll do whatever it takes. The Foundation determines that the broadcasts are each unique occurrences of a young girl counting down, not the same recording over and over. There's also significant audio distortion in the background of each broadcast, but the distortion is too weak for them to analyze. They learn that the longer the broadcast goes on, the stronger the distortion becomes, and they decide to let the counting continue for longer than usual to learn more. After listening to the broadcast countdown to 50 a few times, they determine that the distortion is in fact the sounds of thousands of children screaming. At one point, a researcher stationed at the site attempted an unauthorized experiment, trying to communicate with the voice during a broadcast. The voice immediately stopped counting, and the broadcast changed to a high-pitched screeching sound, inflicting significant levels of pain, dizziness, and disorientation to all personnel present. This continued for 25 seconds until the researcher transmitted "all is well," causing the broadcast to cease. Afterwards, researchers noted a significant increase in missing children cases around the world, the majority of them occurring apparently during that 25-second period. They all remain unsolved. The next broadcast occurred 2 weeks later, with the audio distortion in the background much louder than normal, and the counting starting at 199. So, as expected, Division P will go to great lengths to secure Russia's future, up to and including consorting with powerful ancient entities that demand children's sacrifices. Let's hope that countdown never reaches 0 then. Division P dabbled with many different ways of winning the Cold War beyond making sacrificial deals with devils, including using SCP-2762. 2762 is a small stone carved into the shape of a snake weaving over itself, with its head resting on top. The stone seems to be around 500 years old, and is covered in carved runes that were apparently added later. Overall, the stone is similar in appearance to other sculptures associated with ancient Mesoamerican cultures. Every full moon, 2762 will activate, vibrating and glowing green, as it draws in all nearby matter through anomalous means. This vacuum effect intensifies until 10 cubic meters of non-gaseous matter is consumed by the stone, at which point the consumed matter is disgorged in the form of large, animate snakes through a portal. This portal always opens in a space near the current President of the United States. The snakes, approximately 17 meters in length and faction, composed of the material consumed by the stone, will attempt to kill and consume the president, if not destroyed first. They will also lose all anomalous properties at the following dawn. Obviously, this is a pretty big problem for the US government, but it's unclear if any president was actually killed due to 2762. The US Secret Service attempted to negate the stone's effects by sending it to the moon, believing that since it activates based on the phases of the moon, if it was on the moon's surface, it wouldn't be able to activate. Unfortunately, 2762 uses the target's location to determine the moon phases, not itself, so the activations continued, and the Foundation has been unable to find it in the moon to retrieve it. As expected, the Foundation was able to trace the stone's creation back to GRU Division P, and track down a former agent living in America. A Foundation doctor interviewed the man in a coffee shop to find out more about the stone. The stone was found by the GRU in Mexico, in the hands of some revolutionaries who planned on using it to topple Mexico's government and install a true communist regime. Back then, all the stone did was pull in a small amount of matter and spit out a small snake from the mouth of the stone. Not very useful, but the GRU intervened before learning if they had intended to modify the stone themselves to make it stronger. It had likely started out as part of some ritual for an Aztec deity. Division P got a hold of the stone and began modifying it by carving runes into its surface, making it far more powerful and the snakes far more aggressive than before. They also moved the portal it created from the mouth of the stone to a spot near the President of America. They also included some runes to protect the stone if it was ever captured by the Americans, which it was. The former agent finishes the conversation by asking that if they do end up retrieving the stone from the moon, to bring it to him so he can remove its protections. He says that when they first modified it, they were young and idealistic, hoping to win the Cold War themselves. Now he realizes that the president being eaten by a giant moon snake would be more trouble than it's worth. That definitely wasn't the end of Division P's attempts to destabilize the West through the use of anomalies. SCP-4848 is a memetic hazard consisting of a phrase spread through visual and auditory means created by Division P. The phrase causes individuals to become preoccupied with it, incorporating it into their work routines and projects, but the phrase has no clear definition and is interpreted differently by different people, causing the general work processes of a facility to slow down. This effect is seen most prominently in the armament industry, and was spread by Division P as Project Termite, to make the American military-industrial complex far less efficient. They also apparently used some sort of extra-dimensional portal to create infinite amounts of ships that they proceeded to salvage and sell off to fund their projects, as seen in SCP-2577. They also made a memetic hazard that eventually causes people to explode and expel bald eagles and Big Macs, SCP-1681. GRU Division P is in some ways similar to the FBI's UIU, generally in over their heads with the forces they're meddling with. Division P differs, of course, in their operational goals, being far more ruthless and determined to do whatever it takes for the USSR. Obviously, in the end, their use of anomalies couldn't prevent their own dissolution and the collapse of the Soviet Union, which isn't that surprising. There are former agents still kicking around though, some still with an extreme loyalty to the Soviet Union and the knowledge of countless anomalies. There's plenty more to be read about GRU Division P and their shady antics during the Cold War, but this should have given you a decent first look at another unique and patriotic group of interest.
Big Macs
Big
and
Mac.
bald eagles.
That, and then I think we heard the Radio Tower one a little while back too.
Yeah, that one was previously in another video. That was in A Good Boy. because that was one of the anomalies that the AI was able to correct, essentially.
Oh, that's right. Dr. J, welcome in. One sec, I'm going to get some water. BRB. Popcorn. Get your popcorn here. Alright. We're in it.
All right, good to go.
Yes, sir.
All right, so just a little bit of a preface for this video. Previously, last week, we did a video on one of the paratech groups. Paratech is paranormal technology. That group was Anderson Robotics, and they're a pretty prominent group of interest in the SCP universe. The other paratech group that is one of my favorites is a defunct organization that's called Prometheus Labs. And a lot of their stuff that they worked on, even though the group is defunct, is still out there in the wild, and the SCP Foundation has to deal with it.
Alright.
Prometheus Labs. SCP is generally associated with the horror genre, but over the years it has become increasingly involved with science fiction as well. I've talked about a number of anomalous machines throughout this series, from AI to weapons to spaceships. These types of anomalies come from all sorts of sources, of course, many of them unknown, but many of them were manufactured for the specific purpose of being sold. I've already looked at one such anomalous tech company, Anderson Robotics, but this time we'll be looking at Prometheus Labs, a now defunct company responsible for a wide variety of technological anomalies. The ones contained by the Foundation are those generally found in the aftermath of the company shutting down, as they continue to crop up in locations around the world. As usual, I'll be looking more closely at some SCPs connected to the group rather than the group itself. Prometheus Labs was a private, for-profit conglomerate based on research and development, founded in 1892. The company's name comes from the Greek mythological figure, Prometheus, and a hiring packet from around 1982 gives a bit more insight into that decision. Prometheus was neither a man or a god, but instead a Titan, the progeny of Gaia, the goddess of the earth, and Uranus, god of the sky. When Zeus later rose up against the Titans, only a handful of them fought alongside the gods, including Prometheus. The packet author says that he won't necessarily say that Prometheus is the reason they won, and Prometheus fought for selfish reasons, humanity. Prometheus is said to have crafted humanity from clay and gave them writing, science, farming, medicine, and math. As part of this, he stole fire from the gods to give to his children, which angered Zeus, resulting in Prometheus being chained to a rock for all eternity and having an eagle eat his liver each day. Just as Prometheus stole fire from the gods, Prometheus Labs wrests the secrets from the universe. Just as fire once seemed so mystical and magical and is now trivial, so too can be the way of all unknown things, through study and intuition. Prometheus Labs was certainly successful in discovering some of the secrets of the universe, as through their R&D they released an impressive lineup of anomalous tech. They were also a very public company in regard to non-anomalous tech, releasing high-quality electronic, medical and pharmaceutical, automotive, optical, and industrial goods produced from anomalous research. They had classified contracts with a number of militaries, primarily the United States, and were affiliated with most of the major anomalous groups of interest. They purchased objects from Marshall Carter and Dark, developed brain-machine interfaces alongside the Maxwellist branch of the Church of the Broken God, designed low-cost food alternatives for the Mana Charitable Foundation, sold tools and supplies to Are We Cool Yet?, the Global Occult Coalition, and the Chaos Insurgency, waged industrial espionage against GRU Division P, and engaged in lawsuits with Wondertainment. As for the Foundation, Prometheus Labs was neither antagonistic nor friendly, and they refused the Foundation's offer of helping to design better containment protocols for some of the company's more volatile objects. Everything was going swimmingly until 1998, when an unknown event caused the entire company to go belly up. Whatever happened was a very public accident, resulting in the Foundation swooping in, covering up the whole thing, and seizing many of the projects that Prometheus Labs were working on. They weren't the only ones, though, as it's believed that many other groups of interest also got their hands on some Prometheus tech after the company shut down. The resultant chaos of the company's rapid shutdown has led to an incomplete picture of everything that Prometheus Labs had developed or was in the process of developing, so things continue to pop up as the years go by. Based on documents, they possessed a number of rather unique facilities, such as one in the Marianas Trench devoted to researching planetary engineering, a self-sustained facility on Mars devoted to nuclear physics and quantum mechanics, and even a facility constructed in the Jurassic period that researched genetic engineering. The Foundation also retrieved various proposals from within the company's R&D department for new projects. One was a project to create new biological entities that could be sent to nearby planets in order to terraform the world and possibly spawn humans to populate it if necessary. Another was to develop magical computer programs that could perform exorcisms without human intervention. And another was to utilize anomalous materials in order to augment the human body, possibly to assist with their Project Samsara, a project that would eventually fall into Foundation hands, where they became a rather unique MTF. Needless to say, Prometheus Labs had its fingers in a lot of pies, so to speak, covering a wide breadth of anomalous tech. We're here to look at some SCPs though, so let's start off fairly simple and go from there. SCP-155 is a complex electronic construct found in the basement of Prometheus Labs' primary research facility, consisting of a highly modified supercomputer, a dedicated radioisotope thermoelectric generator, and a device that has yet to be fully reverse engineered. Whenever a program and data is loaded onto the device, it generates a spherical temporal distortion field with a 5-meter radius around it. Within the sphere, time is rapidly accelerated, thus resulting in a hyperbolic increase in the processing power of the device. Even though the processing hardware of the construct is dated by modern standards, it continues to increase over a short length of time, with the effective processing power approaching infinity after around 8 minutes. It seems that Prometheus Labs had used this to perform massive calculations that would have taken months, if not years, normally. The drawback of such an incredible device is that the heat and radiation generated by the construct are trapped inside of the sphere while it's operating. This doesn't harm the device much at all, but when the process is finished and the bubble is removed, a massive amount of energy can be released all at once. Anything longer than 6 minutes will result in the containment chamber needing to be decontaminated before personnel may re-enter. At one point, a flawed program resulting in an infinite loop of code was entered into the device on accident, but the process wasn't able to be stopped for 8 minutes. When it was stopped, an intense wave of heat and radiation was released, melting through the containment chamber, destroying the entire wing of the site, and killing 11 people. The construct only received minor damage from the incident. Speaking of messing with time, SCP-2308 was a line of high-performance consumer automobiles manufactured between 1999 and 2009, and sold from 1998 to 2008. The automobiles were otherwise non-anomalous, aside from being manufactured a year after they were sold, which is pretty anomalous. The company, Argo Automotives, a subsidiary of Prometheus Labs that went independent after Prometheus collapsed, somehow created a time loop in which they were able to manufacture high-quality vehicles and then send them back a year into the past in order to be sold. The vehicles were marketed as being high technology and high performance, which they would have been, being a year ahead of everyone else on the market. The money that was earned from these sales was then used to fund the development and manufacture of the vehicles that were just sold. This little temporal scheme worked phenomenally well for the company until the global financial crisis of 2008. Not enough people purchased their 2009 model of vehicle, resulting in not enough funds to actually develop and manufacture the 2009 vehicle. In order to avoid a temporal paradox, however, which was rather conscientious of them, they manufactured the 2009 vehicles anyway, going bankrupt in the process. The timeline was secure, but the company went under, leading the Foundation to actually discover what they had been up to. The Foundation didn't find any paradoxes either, but they couldn't figure out how they created the temporal loop, as the anomaly responsible was possibly sold to an unknown buyer before the company went under. Moving away from time anomalies, we have SCP-1290, a pair of prototype devices created by Prometheus as part of their research into long-range teleportation. Each device consists of a platform, 2 meters in diameter, attached to a large electronic unit, powered by a dedicated generator. One of the devices is located in Colombia. The other is on the opposite side of the Earth, in Singapore. When an object is placed on the platform of one device and the unit is activated, the object is instantaneously teleported to the other platform. However, whether by a design or engineering flaw, the object retains both its orientation and velocity relative to the axis of the Earth. This means that when a stationary object teleports, it emerges on the other platform upside down and traveling at approximately 930 meters per second. When the Foundation tested the devices by teleporting a regulation-sized bowling ball, it resulted in 3 casualties and severe damage to the research facility and a neighboring warehouse. They're hoping to reverse engineer the devices in order to fix the flaw, but so far haven't had much luck. You can see that near beneficial is a recurring theme with Prometheus Labs. SCP-868 is a meme created by Prometheus Labs as a result of their memory improvement research. It seems that the researchers responsible for creating it were unaware that it was memetic, meaning that it can transfer on its own into someone's mind. They believed they had just been working on a new form of therapy. The meme is transferred when someone that is infected with it has a conversation with an uninfected person for longer than 30 minutes. Symptoms of the infection will then begin to manifest after 4 to 9 days. These symptoms typically begin with significantly improved short-term memory, with subjects generally being able to clearly remember events and info for 80% longer than normal. The longer they are infected, the more pronounced the effects become. Roughly 5 weeks after being infected, subjects can begin to remember with near-perfect accuracy any event or piece of information received after becoming infected. Not only that, but this effect also extends to a few days prior to becoming infected. The effect quickly expands from there, however, and soon they can begin to recall everything from since they were born. This obviously sounds incredibly useful for most people to have, with some exceptions, but the Foundation doesn't really like it too much. The problem is that the infection completely undermines the effectiveness of their amnestics, drugs they use to make people forget things. Becoming infected means that no amnestic can ever erase their memories from then on, and worse, the memory regaining effect actually nullifies previously applied amnestics, allowing people to remember things that the Foundation made them forget. Since the Foundation hands out amnestics like most companies hand out memos, this is a pretty big problem for them. Residents of a village in Bangladesh suddenly began remembering the existence of an SCP that was recovered from that location 3 years prior. With no way to make them forget, the Foundation was forced to wipe out the entire village under the pretense of a flood. It was later revealed that 2 researchers intentionally released the meme there, possibly to test its effects. Eventually, the Foundation did manage to develop a unique amnestic that was capable of nullifying the effects of the meme. It works in all cases, but some may develop early-onset Alzheimer's, and others may develop self-destructive tendencies and antisocial behavior. All in all, the Foundation's happy with that. Finishing off with something a bit more dangerous, SCP-2820 is a directed energy weapon operated by an AI developed by Prometheus Labs, known as Kalki. The main body of the weapon resembles a multi-stage coil gun mortar, but there's a satellite dish mounted to the front, and the rear has been modified to fit a large, semi-spherical apparatus. The Foundation have yet to find a way to open this apparatus, but there is a monitor and terminal mounted on it that can be used to communicate with the AI. The monitor also shows real-time satellite footage of a random person somewhere in the world, all of whom have been found to be anomalous. This weapon, of course, kills these targets, but the interesting part is how exactly it kills them. At least once every 24 hours, the monitor will display the message, "Firing, clear area," for 30 seconds, before a blue flash of light is emitted from the antenna extending from the satellite. Afterwards, the monitor will show a new target. Within 24 hours of this event, the initial target will invariably be killed by a series of coincidental occurrences, akin to the butterfly effect. Eyewitnesses to said deaths consistently mention the appearance of a chimpanzee in a trench coat, but video recordings and forensic evidence indicate that this chimpanzee does not actually exist. Instead, it seems to be a perceptual phenomenon resulting from this butterfly effect. Although the weapon anomalously initiates these coincidental events, the events themselves are not actually anomalous, such as ranging from slipping on ice to purchasing cough medicine. The Foundation has managed to replicate the series of events, but it proved to be tedious, difficult, and resource-intensive. The weapon was recovered from an abandoned Prometheus Labs facility in India, and we're given a couple of conversation logs between a user and the AI. The AI introduces itself as Kalki, Precognitive Unit C4SS, son of Brattain, grandson of Bardeen, descendant of Bharadwaja, and the final incarnation of Lord Vishnu. It refers to the weapon as the Vaishnavastra, the celestial weapon by which it shall slay the Sunyavadis. Those are a lot of terms from Hindu mythology, but basically, Vishnu is a principal deity that is said to come down to the earth in the form of an avatar in order to protect the world from evil and chaos and restore order. Vaishnavastra is said to be Vishnu's most powerful weapon, capable of destroying any target from a distance, and Sunyavadis translates to worshippers of the void. Kalki says that it sees the past, the future, and the present, and is able to direct the flow of the universe in order to slay evil. The chimpanzee is apparently the whimsy of a being unable to extricate himself from worldly desires. While an agent was tracking down a reality bender in Brazil, he witnessed 2820's effect on the individual, which resulted in the reality bender suffering a traumatic brain injury and falling into a coma. When recounting the incident, the agent says that he followed the anomaly downtown and they ended up going down an alleyway. The wind picked up, causing a trash bag to float through the air, distracting the agent for a moment. The agent was then jumped by an unrelated criminal, demanding his wallet. The trash bag then collided with the criminal, causing him to start firing his gun wildly before the agent disarmed him. One of the bullets hit a building nearby, causing a chunk of brick to fall down and strike the reality bender in the head. The agent also mentions that when the wind picked up the bag, it almost looked like a circus monkey running away. In another example, in Nicaragua, a minor cult summoned a severely deformed and intellectually disabled Type 5 reality bender. The summoning of this reality bender resulted in a redacted incident, but intervention by SCP-2820 neutralized the threat and prevented a more severe catastrophe. A more thorough investigation of the incident was performed, recreating the timeline of events. Some of this has been redacted, but it begins with a man dropping a ballpoint pen on the ground, which the cult leader later slips on, resulting in her being delayed by 2 minutes to catch a bus. Other events include a minor cult member grabbing the wrong rifle, a rock falling out of a coat pocket which breaks a bottle of tequila and averts an XK-class scenario, and a levitating trench coat is thrown onto the rifle, which inadvertently discharges and shoots the reality bender in the head. So far, this all seems pretty useful to the Foundation, as it takes care of dangerous threats that the Foundation might otherwise not be able to handle as efficiently. Unfortunately, one of the targets it focused on was a Foundation site director. All attempts to destroy or deactivate the machine to stop the event were unsuccessful. They also detained the site director under suspicion that he was anomalous, but they couldn't find anything unusual about him. The site director was transferred to a level 5 safe house, surrounded by Scranton reality anchors in order to protect him from any anomalous influence. After 2820 fired, though, an unexpected defect in the structure of the anchors caused a feedback loop, resulting in a massive spatial deformation, killing the site director. The Foundation logged back into the terminal to ask the AI about this killing. The AI said that within 10 years, the site director would have become anomalous and wreak havoc upon mankind. When asked if it's possible the AI killed him for some other reason, the AI responded that it doesn't enjoy taking lives, but it does so in order to bring humanity into a golden age. Whether or not the Foundation believes that is unclear, but for now they can't figure out a way to stop the machine from continuing to kill anomalous individuals, although they are researching possible methods of destroying it. While a lot of groups of interest in the SCP universe fall pretty clearly into the malicious or outright dangerous camp, Prometheus Labs seem to do mostly alright, with a few exceptions. Much like Marshall, Carter, and Dark, they were primarily interested in profit, but while MC and D have very few scruples about what anomalies they deal in and who they give them to, Prometheus Labs had every intention of being a relatively safe and dependable anomalous business. What exactly happened in 1998 that caused the entire company to implode might never be known, and in the end I think the Foundation is happy that they're gone, as clearly the company was involved with some things above their pay grade. Just as Prometheus was punished for overstepping his bounds, it seems that so too was Prometheus Labs.
Damn. It's crazy how many different organizations there are in this SCP universe. It's wild.
And that's how you get some really good storytelling out of them, because there's some really good articles and really good tales that involve quite a few of these groups, and this isn't even all of them either. There's actually a few groups that I've omitted from both last week and this week that we will cover at a later date. They're not as important, and they're also more on the weird side of things, but these are the more cool groups that I decided to showcase today. Let me see what the next one is.
That shit's insane.
Okay, so the Oneiroi Collective, they are a group of entities that live within the collective dream space of humans, and these anomalies that we'll be discussing in this video are pretty badass. This video is 36 minutes long, so that'll put us pretty close to 9 o'clock, so this might be where I cut it off tonight. I don't know, it's up to you.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where we're at.
The Oneiroi Collective. Entities living within the collective dreams of humanity are not a unique concept, with one of the best known examples being H.P. Lovecraft's Dreamlands, in which humans that possess a talent for dreaming can visit the Dreamlands and interact with other entities. In the SCP universe, dreams functioning as a metaphysical space is not quite so clearly understood, where it seems to be predominantly the home of the Oneiroi. Oneiroi is a Greek term referring to the personification of dreams, such as in Homer's Odyssey, in which Odysseus' wife speaks of a dream in which an Oneiros spoke to her and calmed her grief. The entities we'll be talking about today are mysterious at best and completely inexplicable at worst, but they are responsible for creating a number of anomalies, of which we'll be taking a look at a few. The Oneiroi of SCP exist within dreams, some of which are human, some are not, and some have abandoned their physical bodies completely, while others only visit. There are multiple groups of Oneiroi in existence, such as Oneiroi West, the largest and most coherent group. They come together to form a hive mind of consciousnesses, although the members that form it, both visitors and permanent members, retain their autonomy and sense of self. This is generally considered the best group to be a part of if you're going to join one, although the hive mind prevents them from dying, which, as we've seen, is generally not great. The group we'll mainly be looking at, though, and the group that the Foundation primarily cares about, is the Oneiroi Collective. Normally, for a group of interest, I'd try and talk about their organization and goals, but the Collective is extremely mysterious, with many Oneiroi believing that they exist within the majority of Earth's flora and fauna. Oneiroi that join up with the collective are either never seen again, or come back as twisted amalgams of many different things. What we do know about this group is that they're responsible for the creation of a number of anomalies that exist in the physical world. These anomalies are all especially unusual, and seem to exist to progress the collective's goals in some way. I think it's best if we just dive into the SCPs in order to get some idea of what the group does. SCP-1498 is a collection of 30 bundles of phone cords and phone handsets assembled in a way that resembles sheep. Each of these instances are capable of movement, but currently they simply wander their containment chamber aimlessly. On each instance are the words, "Make your own custom dreamscapes with your friends at the Oneiroi Collective." When someone picks up one of these phones, they will hear 3 rings, followed by a voice identifying themselves as an operator for the Oneiroi Collective. The operator will then instruct the subject on various dreaming options, and make some suggestions to enhance their dreaming experience. After the call is finished, the subject will lose consciousness for 9 hours, during which they will experience a dream to the exact specifications that they described. For example, a D-class was instructed on what to say into the phone, and upon awakening described a dream in which they were a table in a slightly green egg-shaped room, while people, possibly from the 1950s, with red faces, ate off of them. The dream ended with them all hatching. Use of 1498 is addictive, as subjects continue to want to sleep as frequently as possible, utilizing 1498 if they can. Unfortunately, prolonged use of 1498 results in gradual changes to their bodily and mental states, such as subjects coughing up telephones with cords extending into their esophagus, telephone wires growing in place of hair, and their vocalizations being replaced with dial tones. Portions of their cranium and skull will be replaced with telephone parts, and eventually a complete rotary phone will assemble itself on their heads. They will then begin to display the same intelligence as 1498 entities, with no way to restore them. They were first discovered in 1965 in an abandoned office complex in Florida after reports of bizarre livestock started cropping up. Foundation agents found the 30 instances, a bedroll, half a ton of rotary telephone components, and 2 pints of blood in a glass jar. Folded on the bedroll was a pajama onesie with several months' worth of sweat and body oils soaked into the fabric. Another anomaly based around custom dreams is SCP-2876, a smartphone application titled Headspace that has appeared in various app marketplaces. It describes itself as a service making dreams from the floor to your door, and allows users to purchase customized dreams and micro-dreams. Inside of the app is a text box allowing users to request their custom dream, along with the length of the dream, ranging from a microsecond up to 72 hours. Once purchased, a message will appear reading, "Deduction, reduction complete," and the subject will immediately lapse into REM sleep. Most of the users of the app average between 30 minutes to an hour of usage at a time, with only a small percentage utilizing it for the 72 hours. They describe the dreams as being lucid and relatively accurate to their requests, with them also able to purchase additional dream time while asleep through in-dream menus that can appear. One review of the app reads, "I never tried imagining where all the teeth that break in dreams go. Turned out they were in my dad the whole time. Thanks, Oneiroi." While asleep, subjects are unusually resistant to being awoken, and their heart will cease to beat, although the rest of their body will continue to function as normal. If used for longer than 1 hour, however, a subject will enter a sleepwalking state, and what's more, objects they interact with while sleepwalking will function even if not powered. For example, microwaves will cook food despite not being powered, vehicles will operate without the engine running, or in fact without even having an engine. Local area networks show inactive network-enabled devices accessing hundreds of websites at a time, and subjects are able to navigate any darkened area as though it were fully lit. Since users of the app are frequently engaged in intense physical activities, they do not receive most of the beneficial effects of sleep, and will frequently reactivate the app in hope of getting rest. Long-term users of the app fall into 4 distinct groups while sleepwalking. Group 1, referred to as observers, spend most of their time observing their environment, seeking out mundane objects and documenting them by any means available to them, such as marking on their body. Any markings made will be removed once they cease sleepwalking, however. Group 2, preceptors, will focus on sensory excitement, exposing themselves to extreme temperatures, weather, depths, and heights. They may stand in front of open ice boxes, touch hot irons, spend copious amounts of time running hot or cold showers, or if given enough time, will seek out blizzards or heat waves. Group 3, thrill seekers, will frequently place themselves in deliberately dangerous situations, although this behavior goes against the app's TOS agreement, resulting in the dream ending early. Occasionally, subsequent resting may involve nightmares about grinding in some form. Finally, Group 4, known as consumers, will attempt to eat massive quantities of food in great diversity, generally everything in the subject's possession. During longer sessions, they will attempt to purchase large quantities of food, and will frequently attempt to place anything they can see in their mouths. Subjects are, however, reimbursed for any expenses and purchases during their time utilizing the app. If a subject is killed or otherwise seriously injured during their time with the app, it will delete itself from any devices in the subject's possession. Those that survive said injuries will have no memory of the app, and will rationalize their behavior by attributing it to drugs and alcohol. All other subjects who have used the app will wake up in possession of a business card reading, "Thanks for being a great host. We'll be back real soon." It would seem that the other half of this app allows some type of entity to take over the bodies of those that are dreaming, using them to observe human life and Earth. The app received an update at some point after discovery, with the update log listing an improved review system with sections for body feel, ectoplasmic congruence, and accessibility, along with automatic host tracking and alerts for body availability and better filtering of intent from dream entities inquiring on availability. So far, the Foundation has yet to find the other application that lets incorporeal entities take over human bodies. SCP-2028 is a collection of 258 empty snow globes with the words, "Remove the negative emotions and thoughts from your mind with your friends at the Oneiroi Collective," printed on the underside of each, along with instructions to not use more than 3 times per 30 days, and in case of an emergency, to not break the glass. When one or more humans enter REM sleep within 4 meters of one of these snow globes, the subjects will invariably experience a vivid nightmare, with an intense sensation of relief upon waking. For the following 3 days, then, the subject will report an increase in happiness and willingness to participate in social situations. The snow globe used to induce this nightmare will then be filled with images from said nightmare. If this globe is picked up and shaken, the subject will experience brief, random hallucinations related to the nightmare. If the phrase, "please reset," is spoken within 4 meters of one of these used globes, the images will disappear, and it can be used again to induce another nightmare. Each individual globe can be used 3 times within 30 days without any additional effects, but if used more, cracks will begin to appear on the glass. If it's used 6 times within 30 days, or if it's otherwise broken, an area of local reality around the broken snow globe will be restructured. The size of the affected area averages 250 square meters, and it will be reconstructed to strongly resemble the nightmare that was previously contained in the globe. This restructuring typically disappears after a number of hours equal to the subject's sleep duration. The globes were first discovered in a farmer's home after he accidentally broke one of them, resulting in the entire home being affected by a restructuring. The farmer reported that he often had nightmares about being considered inferior due to not receiving a proper education. For whatever reason, the restructuring has so far been permanent, unlike all other events observed by the Foundation. The majority of the home was changed into black and white. Several books of varying nature appear and disappear randomly, and if one is picked up, it will become animate, manifest teeth-like growths, and attempt to bite whoever is holding it if they don't finish reading it. Several lockers similar to those found in schools fill one of the building's hallways, filled with random contents normally found inside school lockers, although notebooks will contain text complaining about bullying or having to study. Any animals that enter the building will either be transformed into an object or will be dragged by a human arm manifesting from a nearby surface into said surface. None of the animals that have disappeared in this way have been found. Several humanoid entities resembling students, teachers, janitors, and security guards will perform activities related to their profession, but will often have anatomical features replaced with objects like mops, pens, chalk, books, and chairs. They will also communicate solely through low-pitched gibberish. An individual identical to the farmer will appear randomly inside of the building and walk aimlessly. If spotted by the other humanoids, they will point at him and call other humanoids, who will gather and laugh. Another humanoid entity will wander the building shouting the farmer's name and talking to itself. It resembles an adolescent male carrying a red backpack, but his fingers are replaced with pens. Unlike the others, this one can communicate normally, and identifies itself as a close childhood friend of the farmer, although it's incapable of perceiving the copy of the farmer. The Foundation have tried to recreate the circumstances of this incident with D-Class possessing a similar phobia, but have so far been unsuccessful. Jumping over to something wildly different, SCP-2805 is the severed head of American industrialist Walt Disney, held in suspended animation in a cryonic freezer. Connected to this freezer are 2 rotary telephones, and printed on the bottom of it are the words Siberian Solutions from the Oneiroi Collective. Whenever a human subject views the head, they will receive a phone call within 24 hours from someone claiming to be Walt Disney, who will speak at length about their hopes for the future, their desires, and the Epcot portion of Walt Disney World. Digital analysis of the voice confirmed it to be a match to recordings of Walt Disney from around 1965, and the calls are apparently coming from various locations owned by the Disney Corporation. Occasionally during these calls, other individuals in the background can be heard demanding to speak with the subject, but 2805 will generally ignore them. On the few occasions he hasn't, he's asked the subject to wait. Then a sound could be heard described as frozen insects hitting glass, followed by 2805 resuming the conversation and apologizing for delays from unimaginative souls. 2805 was discovered in 1967, around 9 months after Disney's death, when several secretaries within the corporation began receiving phone calls coming from 2805. An executive member of the board of directors was called and began spending significant amounts of time working to bring Disney's original plans for Epcot to fruition. The Foundation tracked down 2805 and contained it. Sometime later, they began receiving calls as well. In an impromptu interview conducted between an agent and 2805, 2805 tells him about his Florida project, a future community where the bothers of the modern world could be forgotten and future technology could be developed. This, of course, was the original concept for Epcot, as envisioned by Walt Disney. 2805 says that the people he left in charge can't grasp his same vision, but maybe someone else can. Maybe even the agent he's talking to. The agent, of course, does not think he's the right person to be speaking to about this, but 2805 insists that he is, with the help of the Foundation's resources. He says that they can use these resources to build a better tomorrow, and asks if the agent can dream it. The agent says that he doesn't know, but 2805 responds with, "If you can dream it, you can do it." Walt Disney was, of course, a man of dreams, so I suppose it's not too startling that he got in touch with the Oneiroi Collective somehow to keep on dreaming. Well, it's common knowledge that Disney was cremated upon death. Urban legends about him being cryonically frozen continue to persist. Let's finish with an especially strange one. SCP-3739, a cognitohazard that spreads into human perception via hidden advertisements, targeted towards the worldwide paranormal market. It manifests from the human noosphere, meaning the collective of all human thought and information, as a company called Moosphere Incorporated. This is a little tricky to understand, but basically this cognitohazard exists within the general collective of human thought, but in order to present itself to us, it appears as a company via hidden advertisements around the world. Advertisements are sort of the key to this, as the document starts by inoculating us against the cognitohazards, which isn't uncommon. What is uncommon, though, is that it inoculates us against the hazardous advertisements by showing us a different type of advertisement. The examples of harmful ads include milk, the meaning of life. If the moon is made of cream cheese, we'll sell it. And makes children and adults as swollen as cows. Moosphere Incorporated uses microscopy technology in order to send incredibly small cognitohazards into our world that anchor themselves onto symbols and signals we're already familiar with. These are also only transmitted when we're asleep, so we become susceptible to these in our dreams. That makes this anomaly pretty dangerous, as not only do they get planted into people's dreams, they're so microscopic that people don't even notice them as they're being affected. These advertisements produced are for an actual product, or actually a chain of products, that exist in both our real world and in our dreams. Not only that, but a large portion of these products are actually generated by us, specifically our brains. Moosphere takes a substance generated by our brains to create their flagship product, mind milk, combining it with some other metaphysical substances. Those that consume Moosphere products develop a buildup of milk curdles on their brains, which further influences them to consume Moosphere products. Again, to simplify, we have a company that basically exists in our collective minds, which creates milk products from metaphysical stuff created by our brains, and spreads ads to convince people to consume these milk products, which then cause people to want to consume more of these milk products. The Foundation got a hold of some chocolate mind milk and did some testing to see how it altered their dreams. After a few days, researchers encountered a handful of different archetypes within their dreams, clearly related to the consumption of mind milk. One archetype consisted of the Moo-Sphere mascot, Jackie the Clown Cow, a lean bovine with a mask resembling a fennec fox. The cow danced in the air, making cow noises and showering the researchers with soy milk. In another instance, a group of 15 child curdles, appearing as Golden Age animated cartoon characters with varying levels of injuries, appeared at the research group supervisor's home in the middle of the night. One of them, identifying itself as Creamy Charlie, recounted dairy-themed parables at 90 decibels. It's noted that the supervisor's young daughter was diagnosed with a medical condition wherein she had too little calcium in her blood a few weeks prior. Another researcher dreamt of a biblical flood consisting of tsunamis of milk washing over population centers. When the researcher woke up and called in to report the dream, an automated voice told him to please hold before expelling milk from the receiver at a rate of 1 liter per minute. This ended 5 minutes later when the researcher cut the phone line. 3739 was first discovered by the Foundation in 1952, when workers surveying the Upper Suez Canal accidentally breached an underwater chamber, releasing a flow of viscous white fluid. Workers that made contact with the fluid immediately began speaking in an unknown language, later identified as pre-Ptolemaic era Egyptian. An excerpt provided for us translates to, "But, my earthly mother, she leads me out of the depths of my head. She says it is nutritious. Should I siphon the teat? Why?" While staying at an asylum, the worker who spoke that phrase began imitating marketing jargon heard on television, and began speaking Moo-Sphere advertisements. A week into his stay, the worker lactated, filling his room with milk. He was eventually released, at which time he fled the country. His apartment was abandoned, but inside they found books by Dostoevsky and Freud, books on cattle farming and entrepreneurship, several documents indicating plans to establish a dairy farm, and a bathroom containing 200 liters of curdled milk. The Foundation wouldn't become aware of Moo-Sphere as a corporation until 2014, when television networks and the internet was flooded with cognitohazardous advertisements. Moo-Sphere does maintain a physical presence in our world, reporting a total workforce of 61,000 employees, but it took the Foundation quite a while to find any physical locations they operate out of. In June of 2023, 2 field agents were sent to a farm in eastern Wisconsin, impersonating FDA inspectors. The agents find farm hands mixing viscous fluids of varying color inside of the facility, while speaking in cognitohazardous advertisement jargon. One of the agents ends up deeper under the facility, in a section with aged concrete walls inked in white hieroglyphics. A number of old, dusty computers are present in cubicles, and puddles of white liquid are seen amidst the hay-covered floors. This agent is attacked by a group of 15 child entities with a hot glue gun, and a copious amount of white liquid is seen coming from his ears before the feed is cut. Audio of various moans, bovine and human, are audible for the next 12 hours, alongside gurgling sounds. When a retrieval force is sent in, they find the farm empty, save for an undulating 1.7 meter wide udder, branded with the initials MM. The udder emitted male vocalizations akin to sobbing, and neither of the 2 agents were found again. They then managed to track down an IP address responsible for uploading a number of advertisements related to SCP-3739. They raided a compound in Wisconsin, finding a man named Jacob Draus lying unconscious while connected to a number of tubes pumping a white liquid into his bloodstream from emptied milk cartons. After regaining consciousness, milk began leaking from his left ear canal. The man says that talking to the Foundation will result in the Moosphere Corporation causing gallons of milk to pour from his nostrils and mouth whenever he sleeps. Apparently, especially angering the Moosphere Corporation results in them turning you into the massive udder, which is what happened to a man named Dave who worked at that farm. Dave had tried to reveal what was going on with the corporation, and thought that he was safe because he had turned on a VPN. The man also explains that the employees of the corporation are capable of collectively dreaming up the technology that they use to create and process the milk products. The process of joining the corp starts gradually, beginning with the subliminal advertisements. Over time, you start to get more and more tired, and consume more and more dairy products, until eventually you slip into a coma. At that point, the corporation has control over your subconscious. He also reveals that at the top of the Moosphere Corporation are some primordial bovine entities that exist within human consciousness, and he says that the Oneiroi don't have jurisdiction to put a stop to Moosphere's activities. There apparently exists a place in the noosphere known as the Marketplace of Ideas, and he ends the interview by saying that there are only two types of people in the world: those that drink mind milk and those that secrete it. A couple of weeks later, a video was uploaded to YouTube titled Sights of Wasaki, northeastern Wisconsin, containing footage of the town's attractions interspersed with imagery of large, writhing, gelatinous bovine masses. Foundation pataphysicists investigated the town, finding a mass of 150,000 bovine memes in and around the town, eventually tracking the source to a warehouse at the town's outskirts. A small team of specialists raided the building, equipped with standard gear and some unique stuff, such as an astral projection kit. The team heads in, finding a number of docile cows and generic farming supplies, along with an office space containing hundreds of laminated posters showing motivational messages overlaid onto stock images of people drinking dairy products. They also find milk dripping from the ceiling that emits a faint green light. A tremor then shakes the entire facility, followed by a long cow moo, at which point the milk sample they took vibrates and grows 10 times in volume. They then find a 3-meter wide teat leaking faint green fluids, and although they make an incision into it, the flesh gurgles and grabs the cutting implement. Past a set of double doors, they enter into a massive chamber that slopes downwards toward the center. A writhing udder fills the chamber, producing hundreds of large teats which stretch and collapse. Sleeping individuals, presumably employees, levitate mid-air in groups of 3 around smaller teats as cream cheese flows in bulk from their heads down into a subterranean tank. A cow falls from an upper walkway, and as it falls, the udder trembles, resulting in the cow hitting the floor in slow motion and dissolving into a translucent white liquid. The rest of the cows follow suit, and some of the liquid sprays onto the team. A pale, floating pink udder approaches them and sends a telepathic signal to one of them, causing her to clutch her temples. She asks the udder what it wants, but it only undulates as if laughing. Another of the team opens fire on it, but since it's mostly metaphysical in nature, it isn't harmed. They then begin preparing the astral projection kit, while the udder displays a number of arms and an attractive plump face, spewing off-white fluids from its mouth. It giggles and shrieks and says, "Your mother wants you to finish your milk." One of the agents tells it that they're lactose intolerant, at which point the 15 child curdle entities separate from the udder. Most of them bombard the agent with runny cream cheese, while the others siphon fluid from the small udder while chanting, "Eat it." One of the agents completes the astral projection ritual and her body goes limp. Her astral body begins pulling on loose teats on the small udder, while the children drag the agent covered in cream cheese towards it. While the astral agent battles the small udder, the third agent fires his gun at the large udder while yelling, "You're not real." The flesh of the large udder goes erect and sprays milk at him, which he consumes without apparent stress. The astral agent eventually defeats the small udder, but the agent covered in cream cheese is no longer visible. The large udder begins shaking and spilling raw milk into the room, so the other two agents flee. 30 minutes later, the missing agent emerges from the facility naked as a disembodied cattle brand marks him on the upper thigh, causing him to moo before it fries the drone recording them. For once, I think it's best if I don't explain any of this scene. Further investigation by the Foundation found several startling tidbits. Over 3,100 dream advertisements convinced dairy corporate executives, regional managers, and ranchers to sign away rights to their dreams during a week in October 2023. On November 21st, 2023, several hundred livestock facilities experienced bovine and human inflation, their body fluids replaced with large amounts of anomalous milk product. This leads to thousands of Wisconsin residents being affected by dream advertisements. On January 30th, 2024, residents in Pennsylvania and Washington are also affected, leading to large numbers of civilians supporting the CEO of Moosephere for president, with running mate Jackie the Clown Cow. On February 9th, the CEO interrupts all of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Washington's major telecommunication broadcasts with a mass of cognitohazardous advertisements. The CEO appears on television, showing him opening his mandibles and bovine eye atop his brow as cream cheese secretes out of these orifices for 3 minutes and 27 seconds. So yeah, ignoring all of the lovely milk-related imagery, what we have here is a group of entities that exist in another plane of existence. In this case, the collection of human consciousness, and they seek to infiltrate humanity and alter our reality by spreading a mental infection, more or less. This is a mix of both a dream SCP as well as a physical SCP, as they're able to create new things simply by having people imagine them hard enough. I realized that this one didn't really have much to do with the Oneroid Collective, instead being more associated with dreaming in general, but it felt weird enough to include. Rounding things back to the Oneroid Collective, though, we didn't really learn a great deal about them. They exist within dreams, but can create anomalies that exist in the physical world. If they had a goal...
I don't know why. Got hella glitchy. Glitch. Let's see here. It was like... It's getting worse. I know, Lucas. Sorry. Alright. Let's rewind it like a minute. Let's see if we're good. We're almost there, guys. if we have audio problems, we'll fix it. Although I can't hear you, Kavzar, though, if you are speaking.
No, I'm not talking. I'm trying to figure it out on my end. It says that the quality of the stream from Discord is reduced, which leads me to believe somebody's probably using the internet here. If I had to guess, it's probably certain boomers streaming stuff in the living room, if I had to guess.
No worries. Let's see if it got a little bit better, and if not, well, we're right at the finish line.
SCP, as they're able to create new things simply by having people imagine them hard enough. I realized that this one didn't really have much to do with the Oneiroi Collective, instead being more associated with dreaming in general, but it felt weird enough to include. Rounding things back to the Oneiroi Collective, though, we didn't really learn a great deal about them. They exist within dreams, but can create anomalies that exist in the physical world. If they had a goal that could be clearly defined, it would seem to be to encourage people to dream as much as possible, likely to draw them closer to the collective. At the end of the day, though, it's just a weird bunch of SCPs.
Shit. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. It's like endless where you can go with this SCP.
Oh, you have no idea. There are certain concepts that I haven't technically introduced you to yet. Memetics is one of them. He mentioned memes earlier. It's not memes like what you see on the internet. It's its whole concept. That there's a video he dedicates to it. I'll show you that later at a later date. Amnestics, they're the drugs that the Foundation uses to make people forget things if they stumble onto anomalies. D-class, those are the prisoners that the Foundation uses to test on certain anomalies. There's a whole slew of things. He mentioned at the end of this video a concept called pataphysics, and he did a whole video on that concept as well, and we'll get to that later, and trust me, that one, it'll blow your mind.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I thought I knew a lot about sci-fi, and I guess there's a lot more. A lot more to the imagination than I thought. Shit's wild. But shit, I think that would be a good stopping point for SCP. Thursdays. Seeing as we're a little glitchy, we've been going for, how long have we been going for now? Let's see.
Roughly 2 hours.
Yeah, that's a good point. Shout out to Lucas, Dr. J, Sebastian for coming in. Obviously, you, Kavzar, for hosting.
Yes, sir.
OLG and a bunch of others that came in. But I think this is a good stopping point. Because shit, it's been a long day. But yeah, man, thank you for all that. And I can't wait for next week and the week after. And shit, there's a lot to... Can't wait to get my mind blown some more.
Oh yeah, like I said, going forward, this is just kind of all of the introductory stuff. So 2 days worth of, a bunch of different groups of interest, and then we'll cover some of the other concepts and stuff, and some minor. There's what's called canons. There's different canons, basically different storylines from different authors. And like I said, from here on out, it's going to start ramping up, where the videos are going to get crazier and crazier, and it'll blow your mind.
No, I like the whole backstory of all the different groups and what they're like. Who's in it for the monetary gains and who's in it for just, I guess, to fuck around and, learn more about the entities and all that shit. So it's dope. It's dope. But yeah. All right, guys. Well, I guess we're going to call it now. And everybody have a good night. Kavzar, you have a good night, good sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and you too.
Yes, sir. All right, guys, and have a good night, everybody else. Dr. J, let's see, probably going to be a lot of entities at Pigeon Forge. I don't know what that means just yet, but I'm sure. All right, guys, have a good night. Thanks for tuning in.